Sales, marketing, and RevOps. It's sink or swim out there, and yesterday's strategies and tactics won't help you today. This is Revenue Today, and I'm your host, Jared Robin. Join me as we interview revenue leaders in our community to learn what steps we could take right now to help you scale yourself and your company. Revenue Today is sponsored by RevGenius, and we're on a mission to bring inspiration and creativity to all revenue professionals in the world. Want to shout out our sponsor, Demandbase. Demandbase is smarter GTM for B2B brands. They help marketing and sales teams spot the juiciest opportunities earlier and progress them faster by injecting account intelligence into every step of the buyer journey and orchestrating every action. For more information about Demandbase, visit demandbase.com.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar with our value partner, Qwilr. We are excited to get started here. I'll go ahead and start with introduction. I am Gina Guerrieri. I am the Partner Success Manager here at RevGenius. Today, Mark Tanner, co-founder and COO of Qwilr, is being joined alongside of Jonathon Blackburn, VP of Global Sales at Qwilr, and Kendra Berner, Senior Strategic Account Executive at Lattice. And we'll be going over how to close deals during a downturn. Guys, you will want to take lots of notes. Please ask a lot of questions in our Q&A. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend our webinar today. And we will go ahead and turn it over to the deal closing experts.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Gina, John, and Kendra. It's just fantastic to be here with you. Hello, friends. Please do ask lots of questions. We would love to sort of have this be interactive and have lots of Q&A at the end of this. We're going to run through this all now, but I think there'll be chances for Q&A at the end. So look, I think from our side, the thing that's on everybody's mind here is, Gina, we've lost the slide. There we go. So I think the thing is on everyone's mind here is that we are entering a changing world. And I think for those of us who've been in sales for a while, look, the last few years of selling have been some of the best we've seen in our career. There was a lot of people, out there, buyers, I think a lot of interesting stuff happening and a lot of people feeling generally positive about the world and sort of growth and change. And obviously, there were some COVID challenges as well in there. But I think, the last few years have generally been pretty great. And I think that we're entering into a new world. I think we sort of need to have a moment to pause and have a bit of a reset to sort of rethink about go back to some of the fundamentals and also some new strategies about what's the right way to approach sales in this era. I think it is getting hard. I think it's getting especially hard in tech, which is, I think, obviously where we are. There's a whole sort of ecosystem change happening around there at the moment. Right now, Qwilr is going through this, budgets are being set for 2023 and finance is going through with a red pen. And I think it's going to be a bit sort of more challenging to sort of find that budget sort of than generally. And look, I think whether or not a recession happens next year, I think there's at least a decent chance of that happening. And so again, all of this is going to mean that it's harder for sellers to get the job done. Fear, uncertainty, doubt is nothing that sellers aren't aware of. But I would say that, again, now is a time for us to sit back and reflect upon what those fundamentals are, what some of those right strategies are, and have a bit of a reset. The other sort of important thing to say here is that selling has also changed a lot in the past couple of years. And so I think the way that people did these resets in the past is sort of a little different now because we do live in this virtual selling world. The other thing that's happened over the last few years, especially, has been this move towards virtual selling, this move towards online, this much more research being done earlier on, as well as, frankly, I think buyers having a lot more power in the process and a lot less contact time with reps. And so I think that also sort of colors, I think, this sort of change in this sort of market, and something we sort of want to make sure we touch on a little bit as well. So look, that's the intro done here. Let's actually sort of go and dive into what it actually means to sort of change up here. So Gina, if you want to throw to the next slide. All right. I'm sure this is something that if you're a sales rep, this is your sales leader has said this to you, millions of times, or if you've read the books, this is one of those things that's out there, but it really is fundamental to doing well at sales, to like knowing where you win. I think most companies right now, there's been a bunch of reports out. I'm sort of looking in tech world, but a bunch of reports out that are sort of saying generically across the board, sales cycles are lengthening, win rates are declining. And I think, as we have this transition, in good times, a lot of mediocre deals can look decent. I think things that once are sort of on the edge of where your product or service is able to sort of add value, a lot of them can end up being wins, even though it's a little bit marginal. But in bad times, you really kind of actually like really truly need to know, like, where do we win? Where are we excellent? Where is the spot that we have our sort of sweet spot? John and Kendra know I've got this terrible analogy coming. So here it is. One of the things that I've been sort of thinking about in this sort of zone is like, if any of you are into like, blackjack or poker or any of those sort of things there, like I think in the modern version of those games, it's a really sort of numbers driven game, playing poker or blackjack. And the best players always know how to score their hand. And so when you get a hand dealt, you sort of have this understanding of like, okay, this hand in this scenario has about a roughly this % chance of winning. And I think sort of having the same understanding with your deals matters as well, right? And sort of looking at your pipeline and being like, oh, this particular deal, because of this particular, thing, whether it's to do with like industry or company size or region, or there's a whole host of different possible things that can lead to this. It could be pain or use case or whatever. But this one, like, we kick ass at this. Like, we're fantastic at this. We're going to close this every day, versus here's where it's a bit more marginal. It doesn't mean you can't work the marginal deals, but you do need to be honest about like where you spend your time and how you think about that. So I'm going to shut up here. I've had, a classic founder monologue to kick this off, but I'm going to throw over to JB now. JB, how do you think about this sort of challenge?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I shouldn't say any, but most companies have a pretty good idea what their ICP is. By ICP, I mean their ideal client profile. As you mentioned, Mark, that could be industry, it could be team size or company size you're selling into. It could be the problems you're solving, the location, a couple of things, or any number of those or all of those. So I think like being really clear on what your ICP is important. If you're a sales leader or a sales rep or just a revenue leader and you for whatever reason don't have a clear idea of what that might look like for you, or you just want to kind of validate that, I would urge you as an AE even to kind of go through the deals you've won over the past maybe like 6 to 12 months, and look at the similarities in terms of, how large are the deals, who were you selling into, how many people were involved in those buying cycles. And if you're a revenue leader, and you feel like you have a pretty good idea of what your ICP is, but maybe you want to kind of double down or look back on that, I would urge you to do the same thing across your team, just to make sure that the types of deals that you believe and think you should be working are the ones you're actually winning, and to get a better feel for how you're actually winning those, which I think ties back to like, there can sometimes be a case of the deals we want to be working, the deals that we want to close versus the deals that we're actually winning, and what that looks like. And so I think, my recommendation there would be to look back and have an honest kind of look in perspective on what the difference is between where you want to be versus where you actually are winning, and how you could influence that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And just to sort of double click on that, I think if you're a rep on this call, it can be easy to sort of sometimes be like, oh, look, that's RevOps' job to figure out what that is, or that's sales enablement's job, or my VP's job, or whatever. Like, no, guess what? You are a seller. Like the thing that matters for sales reps is like that, you kind of have this funny relationship where you're sort of your own company. Like, Kendra is Kendra Co, right? Who like, she much as she's part of the wonderful Lattice team, she's also an individual contributor who like has a real control over how much comp she takes home. And it's like, this little small business that you run. And I think like you've got to take it seriously. And I think if you don't feel like you have a good knowledge here, like you should feel free to push RevOps or push someone else on the team to figure it out. But also, frankly, you might just grab that smart other AE friend of yours and just like have a chat and go through each other's deals and work through and be like, you know what, it just really feels like we do very well here and we don't do well here. Like I would always just say, like, yes, it's nice to have all the support you can, but I would also just like take it into your own hands and like make sure you fully internalize so that you can quickly look at deals as they come in and be like, hey, this one feels like sweet spot, great. This one feels a bit marginal. Given my pipeline, should I maybe just ignore this and just actually focus on the ones that are winners, or how should I think about it? And I think knowing that is super important. Kendra, speaking of Kendra Co, how do you think about this?
No, I love it, Mark. Actually, the thing that came to mind for me with your great analogy is obviously everyone wants a royal flush, but like, how often does that happen, right? Like, but yeah, I'd love to share my opinion, just coming from like the rep lens and doubling down even on what we were talking about in JB, what you were talking about with, it's probably this balance, especially in the climate that we're in today, of going back to what's been repeatable and anchoring ourselves in that, but then also still being willing to think about how can I do things differently, because it is going to be a harder sale, right? And so a story that comes to mind for me is, working at Lattice, we emphasize in really strategic people programs and thinking about reframing Lattice not just as an HR technology, but more as an employee experience platform. And so when we think about even our ideal customer profile, we have a lot of tech partners, but we also spent the past couple of years targeting agencies, since they usually have a lot of disjointed processes and a real high pain and high need. And so I think looking at your pipeline today, whether you're a rev leader or a rep, really emphasizing on like, where are my deals that had the highest pain points, where I really dug deep into that pain funnel. That's also going to help anchor those deals to very specific events or pain that can then propel it forward.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the other thing is also, I think sometimes one of the things we can also think about in downturns is having some degree of an idea around, there might be some people that you've sold to in the past that had great win rates. Let's say perhaps in agency land. And sometimes there are certain industries that just get hit harder than others during downturns. And so sometimes you can be like, I know in the last couple of years, we've kicked ass at A, B, and C. But actually C is going to have, I think they're going to have a really hard time over the next little while, and just kind of trying to be, as John sort of said earlier, like trying to be honest with yourself, like about what the reality on the ground is and sort of what that looks like. Again, none of this means you shouldn't work certain deals. Like there obviously is a lot of different contexts out there. And also, frankly, like hard times are when great reps are made. And I think you can actually really prove yourself and sort of show, actually, this deal that looks like it's a 50-50 deals. Actually, I win 50-50. This is going to make no sense, but I win 50-50 deals, greater than 50% of the time. That sort of makes sense. I sound like the Anchorman quote. Anyway, but I think that sort of that side is great. All right, let's flip over. So, sorry. Before we wrap up here, any final thoughts here? All right.
Whoa, another great episode of Revenue Today. For show notes, links, and mentions, visit revenuetoday.live. For all my friends in the RevGenius community, thank you. It's been awesome to spend this time with you. Please DM me any feedback and ideas in our Slack channel or on LinkedIn. If you're not in RevGenius, join us at revgenius.com. It's free and it only takes like 2 seconds, and you'll be joining a group of 27,000 revenue professionals strong. We've got it all. Looking forward to seeing you there. Catch you on the flip side.